What are we waiting for?
Yeah, it started.
Well, let's talk.
Okay. All right. So
We ain't going to the end of that thing. Well, maybe. We'll see.
So how you doing? My name's Stephen Thorne here with the Atlantic Tile Experience. I'm Nick Thorne.
I'm Ken Thorne. No, I'm Ken Thorne, the old original owner of Atlantic Tile.
So today we have Kenny Thorne on our podcast, our first experience. A lot of you have been waiting for this episode. Obviously, it's been pushed back quite a few times, just for unforeseen issues with work and whatever. So first and foremost, how I want to start the podcast is just explaining the reason for me wanting to do this, and why I'm doing this. So a lot of times I found myself messaging people on social media, whether it's somebody else in a trade that works with us, an employee, a builder we work for, an architect, somebody that works in social media marketing, anything. And I found myself a lot of times asking questions because, a lot of people always say the more questions you ask, the better. It's not a bad thing to ask questions. So what I want to do is start this podcast and have these people on that essentially who I've been messaging, or just in general, whoever, it could be anybody, and just chop it up and see and see how other people run their businesses, how other people deal with their employees, how other people in the tile industry, because after all, this is a Atlantic Tile Experience podcast. We are tile installers. So having other people on in the industry and asking them different methods that they use, different industry standards that they follow. Some of the builders we work for, discussing, what they expect from a sub, us, and we expect from them. And that's pretty much it. So we decided to have my father on for our first episode. We figured it would only be right, being he is the original owner of Atlantic Tile, obviously retired now. We have Nick here, who's my brother. He's also coming to work for us here at Atlantic Tile and Marble. And it's pretty much it as far
recent college graduate.
Recent, right?
2 weeks ago.
Graduated Kane last year. Or I'm sorry, last month.
Good student, great lacrosse player.
Probably a little bit better of a lacrosse player.
No question about it.
Solid student.
Honestly, Dad, I had you on for the first episode because, obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You built this empire, right?
Yeah.
You built this empire.
Brick by brick.
Brick by brick, you built this empire. So, like I said, what I want to do is, I just want to ask you some questions of, how you built it brick by brick, right?
Shoot it.
Right?
Shoot it. Completely got into this business by accident. I was in retail selling tile after high school. Mom worked at the furniture store next door.
Mm-hmm.
We met up. Been married for 32 years.
Mm-hmm. She now owns the business, correct?
She now owns the business.
That's that's important. That's important.
Was working for a installer. I was his helper because he got a DWI.
Yeah.
First house I turned him on to doing was Mike McCrone. He worked at Mike's house for 2 days. Mike gave him the heave ho, and said, "Come on, Kenny, we're going to go buy a wet saw,
and
we're going to tile this house ourselves." And Mike's a very talented guy.
Yeah.
Bought the wet saw. We started tiling the place.
What did you guys tile?
Tiled his whole house on the cul-de-sac.
And
then we moved over to Ben's house. I tiled Ben's house.
Like that was the second job you did, or just in general?
Second job I did. Right. I still hadn't officially gone into business. and I was driving around in my Honda Accord
Yeah.
coupe, and they used to bust my chops. I'd have to put everything in the trunk to work, And one day they put a spackle bucket with crap in it in the trunk, and of course I opened it, and Ben had visited there.
Yeah.
But that was kind of how the business started.
Yeah.
I got into it. I loved it, and it was a little slow in the beginning. I did painting, or I worked with Ben landscaping. I did what I had to do to make ends meet in the beginning, and slowly but surely, my business grew. I learned more. It grew into a very good business.
Yeah,
it really
absolutely
did.
did.
For somebody who knew nothing about tile or managing a business, it turned into a very, very good business.
What was like the hardest thing when you first got into the business?
I think.
Well, I asked. We were talking about it the other day. Like the recession was probably pretty difficult.
Oh, that was a very difficult time in 2008.
more than yourself. Probably most people. So
the thing is, in 2008, we had moved from Raritan. Well, prior to that, we had moved from Raritan Borough and built the house in Flemington because things were going great. Every year was better and better and better. And that's what I expected it to be until 2008 hit. And, the market just crashed.
Yeah.
And I remember myself pulling out of the driveway in my truck, trying to figure out how I would put gas in my truck.
Yeah.
And that's the God's
and still keeping all your employees on payroll.
I kept all
keeping them busy.
I kept all my employees on payroll.
Yeah.
It was difficult. There were weeks we worked 10 hours, but I did everything to keep those guys, and we still have most of them today.
Yeah, that's a testament to you. And
you know what? I treated them extremely well. As I still do.
Absolutely.
Or did. You do it now, but I treat them like they're my family. I treated them like my family.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we certainly have some great employees that work for us.
We do.
We do. Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you guys tell me how you got here?
I was going to say, I never discussed that. Yeah, well,
we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Nick.
Didn't have a choice.
Yeah, no, we have a choice.
We
have a choice. That's one thing we've always talked about is if, and we were talking about it the other day. We were talking about this with David the other day, my other brother, who is an electrician. But I always had
a licensed
electrician as of 3 weeks ago. So round of applause for Dave.
Absolutely.
Right?
Good job, Dave.
But what was I saying?
Who are you?
Yeah, who am I? So graduated, also went to Kane, played lacrosse with Nick for a year, went for a 5th year, so I could play lacrosse with him. That was also during COVID, so during that time I was pretty much working. I was 35 hours. I was pretty much working close to full time, helping him out. I remember going from work, physical labor, to games the same day sometimes.
But you also worked for me 4 years in high school.
I worked for you in high school as well too. That was until I had to get my license, obviously.
Yeah.
And then once I got my license, I worked for you in the summers. And then, like I said, college, COVID hit, so most of my classes got moved to online. So I really took advantage. And then my 5th year, I was a part-time student, so that really allowed me to work. And at that point, I really knew that I wanted to take over the business. And I was studying business management. That's also what we both graduated with business management degrees. And then in 2023, I graduated, and since then been working full time, obviously for you, and now for my mother, I work for full time. We both work for.
One thing I will say is that, and then we'll move to Nick. But one thing I will say, and I'm incredibly thankful for, is that you never realize what can happen to you in life, and unfortunately, I have an illness that I'm dealing with, but. For the first 4 months that I dealt with this, I never could have made it.
Well, I always like.
I never could have made it without you there to take over.
I always say this, and it's probably good advice for somebody who's not willing to let go. But we talked about a 5 to 10 year plan of us taking over, me and Nick. But it really got expedited to 5 to 10 months, right? That is
5 to 10
the God's honest truth what happened. And it's a good and bad thing, like thankfully I was very, like I said, when I graduated college before this all happened, I was already committed to the business. I was comfortable with your employees. I was uncomfortable with your contractors. One thing I always said to you guys is if we brought in all of our employees right now and they said Steven bought out the business, they should say we already thought you did.
Yeah, which would be true.
So that's one thing, and that's, Nick, obviously something I want you to learn too, is that you have to, you got to build respect for everybody. You have to know your contractors, know the builders you're working for, and you've absolutely even learned that in the past 3 weeks you've been working here. But why don't you give your introduction? Why you want to come work here?
All right, where do I start? So I graduated college 3 weeks ago with a business degree. I started working here back in high school. Freshman year, I've worked 8 years, summers and winters. I was in school, obviously. So, whenever I had free time, I'd always work. I remember my first summer working, making about $10 an hour. I remember
I think mine was eight. Mine was eight. I think below $8 an hour, honestly.
I remember most of the jobs I was doing was carrying tile, so it didn't really seem like a great.
That was like, what was that, like 300,000 square feet of tile?
Didn't seem like a great payout at the time,
right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was a few weeks straight. I just carried.
It wasn't 300,000. I'd be retired living on the beach somewhere.
Yeah, well.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I am retired.
So yeah, it was never easy, and it's pretty hard to say it was necessarily enjoyable, but I kind of just stuck with it because I knew that it would be an investment, and I knew that putting the work in then would be worth it now. And coming out of college, I originally thought, we kind of had a little plan that I was going to come work in the office, but once I started working, we figured it would be better off that I kind of learn how to do it from the ground up instead of just coming straight into the office, learning how to tile.
We need to know all facets of the business.
Yeah, and learning to work with all of the employees alongside of them, gaining their respect. Very valuable. So once I learn that, I will make my way up, whether that be down the road some type of appointment, or maybe doing a little bit of both,
Exactly, because you might find
absolutely.
You might find that it's more.
Think about let's just think about last week what I did, and this is a testament to what most people don't see behind closed doors. And you say, and you did this too. On Monday, I set the guys up and worked with them a full day out in Princeton.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, basically all week was trying to get into the office to do some paperwork, and then never ended up happening. Just because it's crazy. It's,
what, Steve? Honestly, when I was owning the business, and I would spend most of my day driving from job to job to job, always to check up on the guys.
Make sure you didn't have to do any paperwork.
And there was a lot less paperwork, and maybe not, but there was less paperwork.
No, but a lot of my work was done. I worked a lot at night.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to work during the day when the phone is ringing off the hook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Mom used to bust my chops all the time. Yeah, you talk to too many people all day long. But you look at what's involved. By the time you stop at a job and you review with the guys what's going on, if they got any questions, then you go to the next job and you review and see if they got any questions, lay things out. The homeowner's there, the contractor's there. You chat with them. You go to the next job. By the time you get caught up, it's 4:00 in the afternoon, and you still got your paperwork to do. So you work on it here for a couple hours, or you bring it home. That's what you do.
How did your work day? Obviously when you owned the business, how over the years, like how did your workday change? You know, day to day, week to week.
Yeah, like at what point did you
increase?
go from, I guess, like what day was it when you stopped working in the field and you were like, all right, I need to start managing everybody?
You know, I think it kind of just happened that way. You know,
Naturally.
originally I had Dave working for me
With the
for
Atlantic Tile.
Atlantic Tile.
Right.
You know, and he was my first employee.
Right.
He was the first guy that worked for me. He was the first guy I had hired. And
How long did you work by yourself before you hired him?
Oh, I would say a few years.
Okay.
I'd say a couple of years maybe. And then I hired Dave, and Dave and I worked together for many years, just us.
Just the two of you.
Yeah, we'd always intermix one or two guys here or
Right.
there, and then they didn't work out, and we let them go or whatever.
Right.
And then we hired Jose and Henry, and they worked for me. As they do now. You know, they worked for me forever.
Ugo wasn't.
Yeah, they were in and out. Though they kind of fluctuated a little bit, but generally Ugo was here.
Right.
And you know, we had great guys that worked for us. And you know, when that happened, you know, you start to we worked for a lot of builders, as we do now,
Yep.
contractors, and you know, you need to service them, order material, you know. So you know, we had bookkeepers back then, where like Jessica is much more involved now in. There's so
Right.
much more to.
There's
It's so much more to take.
So much to do. I mean, look at in the past.
So much more.
You know, in the past, even in the past 3 years, we've added. You know,
It's so much more to keep track of, and the paperwork, and there's so much to do now.
It's crazy.
Well, that's also a testament to the professionalism of the business increasing year after year. I mean,
I'm going to tell you something. This business
Yes.
professionalism. Don't get me wrong. I was great with my contractors. I was always great to teaching my employees, but I don't think you really realize how great it is with Steven running the job tread that way, because not only is that great for us or for you guys at Atlantic Tile, but for the customers and contractors that we're dealing with.
Well,
it is upfront and very transparent as to what they're getting.
why don't you kind of explain a little bit how job trend works and how you?
Well,
integrate it?
honestly, I'll probably do a podcast episode on job tread.
Which is
Yeah,
a little
Because
bit-
there's a lot of,
but
but there's a lot of,
Building stuff.
even a lot of build. I will, yeah. There's a lot of builders. I mean, dude, I would say maybe every once a month somebody calls me. They're like, "Yeah, we're getting on job trend," and I'm like,
People that we work for.
people that we work for. I'm like,
That's
that's
great.
or like I said the other day, Kristen Becky. He calls me and he's like, "That is the best payment system I've ever paid. I put my routing
But
account
you know,
number
don't
in."
you get some sort of what am I looking for? Some sort of compensation for referring customers to them?
It's possible. I
thought you did.
I don't know.
Yeah, you should look
That's a
into
good
that. I
question.
thought there was some sort of compensation to us for that.
Yeah. I don't know if there is.
Whatever.
I don't know. But yeah, job tread's been absolutely great. So honestly, the best thing job tread was good for is something that we always joked about, right? Me and Jessica, is all roads lead back to Kenny. When I graduated college and Jessica just started working here, every 5 minutes your phone was ringing. Every 5, and I was with you, and whether it was Jessica calling you, myself calling you, it was just off the hook ringing. So something that we did, and I guess this is a good thing for businesses to do when you want to expand family-owned businesses. And mind you, this happened before. This was our plan before all of the health issues and all of that. We were trying to do this proactively, but it's just made everything so much simpler. The guys clock into it. The guys clock out of it. They post their pictures there. They clock into each job. And when you asked the other day, why do I need to clock into the job? Why is it so important? It's not just about tracking the hours on the job, but it makes Jessica's job a million times easier when she's doing payroll, when she's checking where guys worked. It just makes everything so much easier. But if one thing gets messed up, then it just avalanches down. You know what I mean, or whatever. I don't know what the right word is, but one thing leads to the next. I'll give you an example. We're doing a job for somebody up at the lake, and we're doing an hourly, right? We're doing an hourly, and when we do hourly, that's great. But as soon as you do an hourly job and you need those hours, you notice that somebody didn't clock in on that day,
Right.
and you're like, "Are you kidding me? Now I got to go back. I got to trace everything." But hold on. What makes that even nicer too, another layer to that is when I make my schedules, if let's say that you didn't clock into the job today, I'll still be able to see where you worked at because I made my schedule based on where you're going. So there's a lot of layers to it, but there's a method to the madness with it.
What I used to do years ago is on time cards. If I needed to track,
I remember
if I had to track the guy's hours,
yeah,
generally I never tracked where they were on a job. But if by chance the job was run hourly for whatever reason, when they would hand me their time card at the end of the week, I would deduct their half hour for lunch, and I would fill in
on the time card
where they were working.
I remember those time cards.
Accumulated hours.
Yeah.
I mean that's
it's
just,
no, but JobTread has made things so much easier here,
and we got that from Fawcett. Right,
another builder we work for.
Yeah.
But we do another thing too, Nick. You'll learn. I'll eventually teach you how to do this when we have time. But they just introduced the takeoff and estimating system in JobTread.
How does it work?
And
is it good?
I mean, I absolutely love it. But if you have somebody, because
I don't think
it's important to know how to use a scale ruler and scale a set of plans. I'll say that. It's important to be able to read a set of plans out in the field so that, just as it is to do any basic tasks. But
yeah, you can't rely on
I want to rely on
to teach you everything.
But what's
you
nice,
you need to know the basics.
Correct.
How to use a scale ruler, how to use a tape measure.
You need to understand the basics. So, Nick, if you were to come in, I'm going to teach you a set of plans first. But to your argument, what's great about JobTread and that is, let's say Nick, and this is good for why?
I was just thinking, do you know, I never knew how to read a tape measure. I didn't know what a 30-second was.
I said that to David. I said that to David the other day.
Half, a 5/8. I never knew how to read a tape measure until I went into business. And I had to read a tape measure.
I said that to David.
I'm like, look, this is a miracle.
I said that to David. I was like, honestly, I did not understand fractions until I started tiling.
Yeah,
that's the real world.
That's the real world. And we always joke about the college thing, right? Everybody's like, oh, you don't need college. You don't need college. That's true. That's absolutely true. There's tons of free knowledge out there. But the best thing for me and you, Nick, is being able to apply that information we learned.
Yeah, you don't think you learned anything in college.
Well, I mean, I didn't think so going through it, but here
all of a sudden you have a place to apply it, you're like, holy crap, I actually learned something.
Yeah.
I just never applied it. He's gonna have the same
or
thing.
Even think about this, we took accounting 1 and 2, right, Nick? And I was sitting, I kind of knew at this point I was taking over your business. So I looked at it a little bit differently because I knew that I was going to be able to apply it. But dude, simple checks and balances. Most people probably will never, if you go into a business, depending where you work, if you're not working in accounting, you don't know what checks and balances are. You're not balancing
most people that go to college don't work on what they don't work in a field that they got their degree in.
I genuinely stand by this.
Accountant, something like that.
I stand by this, but our business management degree, I did try to go for construction management, but Montclair had it, and I wasn't going there. But business management was the best degree because, like I said, you learn just every aspect and all facets of the business. I think maybe more on a larger scale than Atlantic Tile, but it's still, you can compare it.
Listen, as I've been in this business has been around for 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't look at it as I don't look at it as a big business or a growing business.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I look at it. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. This company now has 7 trucks. Mm-hmm. It's got, I don't even know how many employees. The business has grown. but I don't want it to. I don't want you guys to turn it over to somebody else to run. The success of the business is your involvement in running the business.
Absolutely.
Okay, because there's plenty of very successful businesses. I don't want to name any, but we talked about one the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about, yes, I own a successful business. I hardly ever go there. Okay, that's great. But if you feel comfortable with that,
it reflects.
That's fine.
It reflects and radiates through the business.
But you know, like I used to do, I could still go snowboarding a good part of the winter and take phone calls from customers while I'm going up the lift or going down the mountain
that's a good,
on my snowboard.
That's a good trait to have, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. That was the good stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
What else you want to cover?
I mean, I don't know.
You want to call it a wrap for this first one, or you want to keep going?
No, we'll keep going. We'll keep going.
How much more you want to talk about?
I don't know. I mean,
What's
what's
the biggest job you fucked up back in your day?
That's a good question.
The biggest job
the
I
biggest
fucked up one time. Let me think about that.
That's a good question.
You know, I gotta tell you, I would say I don't know that I really had that issue of screwing up the job. I've taken one thing I've learned over the years is I've taken jobs that were not profitable. Okay, you think you have a large number in there, but you take the job and at the end you realize I made no money on this job because either I got pounded down on the price. I'll never forget one time I was doing a job that Clay Bonney, who, you know, Clay's the best.
Yeah.
Clay had me bidding a job for him, you know, and somebody else had bid it. Okay. And, you know, he partners with a lot of guys.
Right.
So he was doing the job, and it was like an $800,000 job for me. And, you know, you look at the job and you say, wow, $800,000 is a lot of money. I must be making good money on that.
Yeah.
And my phone rings, and it's Clay. And he says, Kenny, telling you right now, I do not want you to take this job. I go, why? He goes, because you're going to get killed on it. He says, it sounds great, but it is not worth $800,000 what we have another offer for that we have, you know, they're going to take.
Yeah.
Because it's a group, you know, it's a group of people who oversee the pricing and stuff. And I walked away from it. And then halfway through the job one time, he said to me, he goes, "How you have no idea how smart you were to walk away from this job."
Yeah.
But, you know, I've had some interesting jobs.
Another good story is honestly Princeton, Riverwalk, right? Ovation. He overbid the job.
Oh yeah.
Get a call back halfway through, right?
Well, that was Bob Gillespie and I had bid that job together, and we were declined the job because our price was too high. The people they hired, we ended up ripping out afterwards. They were 100 showers into, I think it was like 300 units.
Yeah, they were like 120 into it.
120 into it.
Yeah.
The common area hadn't been contracted yet.
None of those.
So they were working on finishing units. They realized they had done
they red guarded
on the walls over cement board, and then we're using mastic glue to set the tile. And then I guess the reality of it is the glue never dries because it's on a waterproof surface of red guard.
Right.
So they ended up they let us rebid the common area because they were unhappy with the tile contractor they had hired.
Right.
Then they awarded us the contract. They awarded Gillespie the common area. Then they realized we had to rip out 120 showers,
Right?
prep them, and retile them. So those people got booted. They tried to burn down a couple of units in the
They
building.
did try to burn
Remember
the place
that?
down.
They tried to burn
the sheetrock, or what was it, the painters or sheetrockers, right?
Yeah, I don't remember who it was.
They what did they do?
They built a fire on the stove.
On the stove, that's
in
right.
one of the units. Yeah,
Dude,
crazy. It was crazy.
that job was
insane.
that was a
But you know what? One thing I will say is
it's a testament to using good products.
we used the best products, and more importantly, we got the job done on schedule when it needed to be completed. We were working directly for the owner out of Houston, Texas, I believe.
That's right.
And we would have job meetings, and they would say, Kenny, you got to get this done for us. And we would get it done, and we would submit an invoice, and we'd be paid with it immediately. They were fantastic to work for us.
Yeah.
They were very appreciative of the work that
the
we
fact
had
that
done.
you could fix.
And we fixed
And
a lot
we
of
did,
stuff.
no, we did the whole pool. Dude, we did a lot
We did
of work
the
there.
pool.
We did the whole pool
Yeah,
there.
we did. I mean, remember the stairs we did
Oh, the stairs are
with
beautiful
the,
there.
with the tread on them? They were gorgeous.
We did a lot of
And
work
that's
there.
it. I mean, that's when some people realize it ain't always about the money, you know. And
Well,
when you come in,
It always, and I've learned this in my own, not just installing tile or bidding it, or I've learned it on my own path, right? That you get what you pay for.
One thing, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, some people just want you to come in and do it right, and it's not.
That is one thing.
How about I was on the job the other day? We'll go back.
One thing I will say is that I never went for that. Either we're paid to do the job right or hire somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't cut corners for anything. I refuse to do it. We've tried to bid commercial buildings, and they just want the tile slapped down.
Well, how about
And let me just finish real quick. A lot of the residential apartment buildings that they do now, I call those commercial jobs, but they don't care. They don't care about the quality, because a lot of times these people, they build the project, they turn it over in 2 or 3 years, and as long as it lasts for 2 or 3 years, that's all they care about. There's no level of quality that they're looking for.
Yeah.
So they want you to work for next to nothing and do shitty work.
Well, how about
We don't operate that.
How about
the business that Atlantic Tile is because of the quality of work that we do.
100%.
End of discussion.
100%. But how about Nick? The other day we were on that outdoor patio job, and the contractor or the GC on the job was giving me a hard time about it raining, and I just said I can't. There's nothing I could do about putting down tile when it's raining.
That's all there is to
There's
it.
nothing I could do about it. I would absolutely not sacrifice the quality of install. We've gone this far, prepping everything to the standards it needs to be, and on the last step, I'm gonna. So that's just
nobody wants to call you about a warranty problem in the beginning.
yeah.
But when they'll always forget about them telling you to do a shitty job. But when they have a problem, they call you immediately.
Well, some people don't appreciate the work that you do. They only scold you when you fuck it up,
Absolutely.
And you have to understand that. You have to understand that that's what the standard is. The standard is doing the job done right, and understanding that, you can only be
You're
penalized for
100%
screwing it
correct.
up, and that's how
You're 100% correct.
you built the company and how it operates.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So on the opposite end, like you asked, one of the biggest fuck ups you said, what are some of the better jobs you've done? What are some of the nicer jobs? Doesn't have to just be a dollar sign too. It could be some cool jobs or.
One thing I will say, we had done some amazing jobs.
I mean, even in the 8 or 10 years that I've been working for you, we've done some absolutely beautiful. I can't even describe these showers. So, only in person justifies how beautiful.
You know,
they were.
a couple of amazing jobs we did was for Barna Building contractors for what was his name?
Vance.
Vance.
You know what? You know what was crazy
Up
about
in
Vance?
Mountainville.
You know what was crazy about Vance?
Thousands and thousands of feet of
It
mosaic.
wasn't. It was absolutely one of the most. I would never install it in my house in a million years.
Nobody would do that.
I'll cut to some pictures of it right after we discuss this. But I would never install it in my house. But some of the craftsmanship is
unbelievable.
Some of the best craft I've ever seen in my.
Well, that was the job I was carrying all the time.
He was the one carrying the tile. You know?
Alex did that job.
Alex did that. Ugo did a lot of the work there.
Amazing.
I mean, like
amazing mosaic.
Every single
work.
thing.
You know what
in
else?
That house, floor to ceiling, bedrooms, floor to ceiling, bathrooms, floor to ceiling. Probably 11 bathrooms in the house.
You know what else was an amazing job we did? Amazing job we did was for Castle Ridge. Far Hills with the birch trees in the shower, the mosaic on the walls. And I'll never forget, the funniest thing about the whole thing was the lady would complain about the amount of time it was taking us. The tiles were half inch by half inch, probably 200 feet of tile.
I think Jose had about like 260 plus hours on that.
Right, just to do the shower.
I mean, insane. I have videos of it on our social media.
It was a birch tree forest.
How that was super cool too. And
mosaic.
That's something that takes serious skill that some people don't understand. That is not just about throwing a 12 by 24.
Everybody wants their bathroom done, but you use that tile and you're like, this is weeks and weeks of work.
So how it was basically is you have like a packet, right, of papers of directions. It's essentially a puzzle. You know, you have one box and it was
A1 pieces numbered.
A1, A2, A3, A4, all the way up to whatever, and you're basically putting together a puzzle.
You know what else was an awesome job we did? And there's so many, but is it St. John's Church in Lambertville? Is it St. John's?
I could look
right over.
I'll look, but what about it?
What's the road before you go over the bridge? It's right on the right hand side.
Lambertville. Let me find it.
Yeah, Main Street in Lambertville.
Let's see, churches.
But St. John's, I think it was called. That place turned out
St. John.
St. John. That place turned out amazing. We did the altar. We did the walkway.
All with like stone too, right? That was all
limestone. It was beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Turned out. Gorgeous place.
I know. Wait, I wonder, do we have some pictures in here?
No, not in there.
No, we actually do have a picture of the Toyota dealership though.
Oh yeah, we did the Toyota dealership, which was a gorgeous job.
Yeah.
We did this job for Penn Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Penn Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've done quite a few dealerships too.
Yeah, we did the Range Rover dealership in Princeton.
Yeah.
That was for Penn Valley.
Yeah.
Commercial's so tough to get to now though, because you can't compete. You can't compete with the guys that'll do it for nothing. Our guys don't work for free. That's the problem.
Well, no, and something that.
But if you go to that dealership is beautiful. Toyota and the Range Rover.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
And I wanted to go. I was about to go into something about subs, and you said we have a lot of employees, that are a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to have in-house employees, essentially.
Yep.
And that's something that I think you and I have learned. I mean, it was more in my beginning end of working for you, but you subbed out some of your work.
I used to sub out. I used to have a couple of guys I worked for, or that worked for me as subs, who were friends of mine, nice guys,
and they were
loved them a lot.
They were good subs.
They were great subs. The problem I had a little bit with them was sometimes their cleanliness. We pride ourselves on every single job we go into. The guys put drop cloths down, or what's the Guardia. We use that, which is an expensive product, but it's a way to run the job.
Yep.
And the guys clean up every day, like they're not coming back. They're there at 7 in the morning the next day. They lay out all new floor prep. And
I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg too. There's so many more reasons why we've kind of stopped using subs and tried to, and really started to focus on more in-house work, because it's just you're dealing with not your employees. If there's an issue,
what do you got to say there?
If there's an issue on a job and you need to go fix it tomorrow, you're not calling another company to go fix it. You're calling your employee who's going to show up on the job in your Atlantic tile van, doing the job that you asked them to do, like you said, in a clean, all of that. And there's so much to be said for that, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows in the industry. Problems happen every single day. And it's not about it's not about the problem, it's how you handle the problem.
Absolutely.
That's how a lot of.
And today you have people who are so picky and particular that you
almost have to account that into jobs.
Well,
not into jobs, but I don't mean it like that.
Great contractors who understand that those come up.
Absolutely,
of course,
which is great.
Yeah.
Yep. And we have great guys that we work for that go over the project with us. A lot of times with the homeowner or the decorator, whoever's involved in the job.
I always laugh. Like, how about this? A contractor we work for reaches out to me about fixing a job that he had somebody else tile because they wouldn't come back to fix it.
Tell me about
that.
Right?
That is, to me, that is just music to my ears right there. Because to me, that says, if he's asking us to go and fix it.
Right, because the guy that did the job.
I said, listen, I'll go back and fix it for you. I'll send a guy there today. I'll get a guy there today. I'll get a guy there tomorrow. But I mean, I'm not, it's not,
that's not your mistake.
It's not a gift.
Yeah, it's not a gift.
If
if you had hired us, of course.
Right. If you hired us and you had an issue, it would be taken
But
care of.
now he knows the next time.
Now he knows
to hire you, and then you screw it up, he'll redo it.
So that was music to my ears when I heard that, because that's something that, like I said, every time you see everybody post stories about their business, it's always doing this, that, it's not that.
No.
It's not that.
I also wanted to circle back a little bit to when, talking about the commercial work, talking about how these other companies, they just throw tile on the wall, right? You talk about that job you did in the shower with the tree.
The birch tree.
The birch tree.
Yeah.
Those guys that do that commercial work could never do work like that.
Never.
Not you, obviously.
Yeah.
And, we have guys that are so skilled that can do that stuff. It's like, why would you throw them on commercial jobs when they're worth so much more?
That was
absolutely,
because we did
and these are discussions that we've had, Nick, before you even came on. Is that
pretty much that work is there's so much more pride in doing
now North
that
Brunswick. Prevailing wage. That's a different story, but.
It's cool completing. I am sure him completing that
it
job
was
was awesome.
Or even moving tile advances. Even we were pouring sub-leveler. That was awesome stuff.
I love Vance's job where he'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to do this wall."
He would just take tile left over.
Say, I'm going to do this wall in the pink. Vance, we only have 5 boxes of pink. Well, go halfway and then split the blue. We got some leftover of that.
Oh yeah,
that was one. But still, dude, my point is that
it's cool too, because they're capable of so much. Most of them, and for them to focus on like their skill and craftsmanship, opposed to, when you say tile being a hard manual labor job, that is so like mentally intensive, not physically as much, which is. When you get that skill, that's almost like rewarding in that sense.
100%.
I have a video of Jose setting. I mean, dude, you have to. I'll get pictures. I'll cue some pictures in this. I'll edit it.
Yeah.
But we did. How about the arch, the window arch? I'll add the pictures. Yeah,
that's
but
cool.
The window arch in that. And so people don't realize the amount of details that go into these jobs.
Wrapped it
not
into
even that.
Jam
water
shower.
How about the waterproofing. He curded everything so nicely. Curdy fixed the windows. I mean, dude,
I know.
the prep to the tile work. I mean, dude, he's taken, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch pieces of glass, and I have a video of him just setting these pieces just along the window.
The video you have.
It's an art.
Amazing.
It really is an art.
It is.
A lot of people don't realize it. How
and we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. You guys now are very fortunate to have those customers, because it's, to some degree, it's a dying breed.
Absolutely,
of quality installers.
Yeah, and it goes back to how you built this company and the employees that you have, and the trust that contractors have in you and your employees, and you get these jobs and you do them right, no matter the price, no matter if it takes once, if it takes twice, you do it right.
Yeah.
And it's earning people's trust,
100%.
And the employees are so great because of how you were able to treat them over the years, and having employees that understand. Like, I think Atlantic Tile has a bit of a culture. Like, you have employees that come here and they stay.
I mean, that's one thing that's one thing.
People don't come here and leave. I don't think I've ever had somebody quit on me.
No,
I'm not kidding either.
No, I mean, and Nick, even this, we learned lacrosse is. I know we're ending here. We're finishing up, but one more thing here. But lacrosse has easily. I mean, dude, building a culture is the number one most important things that we drive into each other's heads, between 3 of us, 4 of us, with mom and all of our employees. Being a family together, everybody working well together is the most important thing to running a good business.
I'll throw a quick one in at the end here.
Yeah.
Wait till you see, you guys both lacrosse players at Kane. Wait till you see the success that Lopes brings in there.
Let's see.
I'm telling you.
Well, one more thing I just want to add.
After
we finish up, I just have one more question for our special guest, Kenny Thorne.
That's fair.
What is one thing, or it could be multiple things, as you grew the company, that you always stood by? Like one.
Yeah, what's one piece of advice you can give me?
One piece of advice: don't promise something you can't deliver. Don't promise something you can't deliver. There's nothing wrong with telling your customer, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry, we're a day or two behind, but we're wrapping up a job that's running a little late. We're going to be a day or two behind." Don't say, "I'll be there tomorrow," knowing you're not going to be there tomorrow, but just trying to delay. Just say, "Listen, we were supposed to start on Monday. We're not starting till Wednesday. I'm sorry," because they will appreciate you show more for that.
And then if you're able to start Tuesday, they'll be happy.
You'll look like a hero.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, we'll wrap up this episode. Dad, I appreciate you.
Let's flip this over.
I appreciate you. Yeah. I appreciate you coming on today. It was only right to have you on as the first episode.
I appreciate you guys so much.
You will,
no idea.
Yeah, and you will absolutely be on more episodes. I'll have you on with more people. And just for those of you who are watching this, or when you do watch it, we'll get more on a timeline with this, releasing videos. We'll get more guests on. We'll absolutely have him on again. And Nick is obviously going to be my co-host here. We'll be running this little gig we got going. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I just want to give a shout out too. Thank you, Joe. You made an absolutely beautiful sign. And thank you guys for coming on.
Who, Joe Schmo?
Just remember, drive fast and take chances.
Yeah.